What if everything that you've believed about legacy is incomplete? Most people think that legacy is something they'll leave behind someday. And I want to suggest something very different for you. I want you to think about living your legacy is the legacy. Curious about that? Stick around and let's talk about it further.
This is the Franchise Pitfalls and Profit Show. Each week, we bring you the challenges and triumphs of being in the franchise development and consulting business. The things you need to make money faster. And now your host, one of the most successful franchise developers in North America, Don Schin.
Hey, welcome back to the current episode of Franchise Pitfalls and Profits. I'm Don Schin, as we just said, and if you're listening this year only, you don't notice the difference, but if you've been listening for a while, you're going to know that this podcast has evolved. We are certainly talking about business ownership. We're certainly talking about franchising, but I've been increasingly talking about something bigger, life, leadership, purpose, spirituality, or your faith. And today's episode is one of those conversations. I want to talk specifically about something that every one of us will think about at some stage, phase of our lives. And we're talking about what we'll leave behind, or at least what will people think of us. And today, to me, that conversation is around the word legacy. So let's get started. When someone mentions the word legacy, what immediately comes to your mind? For most people, it's the bad thing, or what many of us think of as the bad thing, the end of life. It's a funeral. Maybe it's a eulogy. Maybe it's what goes on your tombstone. Maybe it's the dash, on your tombstone, as a lot of people have talked about it. Maybe you think about what your children will say about you. Maybe it's a building that was named after you, or a scholarship fund that you created, or money that you left behind. Maybe it's a successful business that got sold and it kept your name associated with the business. Something people remember after you're gone. For years, that is exactly what I thought legacy was all about. I think that's the common thing. Maybe that's how you think about it now. In fact, if someone had asked me 20 years ago, what does legacy mean to me? What do you want to leave behind as a legacy? I probably would have talked about building successful businesses, or helping other entrepreneurs do that, or writing a book, or speaking on a large stage. Maybe even the impact that I may have felt I wanted to have on the franchise industry, or in my state, the state that I live. None of those are bad things. They're worthwhile things. But over the last several years, God has been quietly changing the way I think. Not just about legacy, but really about life, about living, about presence. I've realized something that I simply couldn't see before. And I wonder if many of us unintentionally have postponed legacy. We think one day when I retire, one day when I have more money, one day when this business isn't sucking the life out of me, one day when I'm not so consumed and so many hours focused on this business, one day when I slow down, then I'll leave a legacy. Does that sound familiar? It's interesting. And certainly our last episode was about the myth of someday. And we talked about how some days can become one of the greatest lies that we tell ourselves, because all we are ever promised is a today. All we're ever promised is the present. And so I've, again, really been thinking, could it be that we have done the same thing with legacy? Could it be we've accidentally moved legacy into the future when in actuality, God intended it to be lived today? So here's the thought that I want to leave with you today. And I hope this is something you will remember long after this episode ends. The greatest legacy we leave is not what we leave behind, it's what we live in front of people while we're here. I'll say that again. The greatest legacy we leave is not what we leave behind, but rather it's what we live in front of people while we're here. That sentence has changed the way I have been thinking about almost everything. Because if that's true, then legacy isn't waiting for me at the end of my life. Legacy begins the moment someone watches how I live. And trust me, somebody is always watching. Somebody is always watching. Every conversation, every decision, every act of integrity or lack of, every sacrifice that you make, every expression of kindness that you do, every tough conversation, every apology that you have to make, every demonstration of your faith. Those moments, to me, are becoming our legacy, my legacy. Not someday, but today. So, I think one of the greatest misconceptions that we have is believing that influence happens primarily through our accomplishments. And I don't really think that that's true, or it does. It's not 100% true. Influence happens through observation. People are watching us far more than they're actually listening to us. Our children, our grandchildren, our employees, our friends, our neighbors, people in the community, people we don't even realize are paying attention, are watching. They are learning what matters, not by what we say or solely by what we say, but what we consistently do. That's legacy. I've been thinking about this so much personally, as a husband, as a father, as a grandfather, as a business owner, as a community leader, as someone who has had the opportunity to lead all different sizes of organizations. When my grandchildren remember me years from now, I certainly hope they remember some things that I have accomplished, but much, much more than that. I hope they remember what they saw me do, what they saw me exercise, how they saw me live, or they see how I have lived. That's what I want them to remember. Did they see humility? Did they see patience? Did they see integrity? Did they see generosity? Did they see joy? Did they see compassion? Did they see someone who loved Jesus? I don't want them to remember my resume. I want them to remember my life. And that has become really freeing to me. It has become motivating to me. It has become driving me in every moment that I live, every opportunity that I have, every encounter that I have with people. This is driving me today. It is something I have to live out, because the greatest legacy we leave is not what we leave behind. It's what we live in front of people when we're here. So, hey, as I've reflected on this, I've realized something else, and it's that legacy is what we live in front of people. And then every one of us, in essence, is leaving a legacy. Did you realize, even if you've never thought about that word, did you realize you indeed are leaving a legacy because you're living. Not just pastors, not just famous people, not just wealthy people, not just CEOs, not just parents, not just teachers, not just coaches. Everyone is living, so everyone is leaving a legacy. So the question isn't whether you will leave a legacy. The question is going to be, what kind of legacy am I living today? Because again, the greatest legacy that we leave is not what we leave behind when we're gone. It's how we live in front of people when we're here. And I don't say this to create pressure. I don't say it again to cause tension. I say it to create, because I believe it creates purpose. I believe what I've come to think about is that people won't remember everything that I've said. They won't remember everything that I've accomplished, but they do remember how I treated them. They do remember if I was present with them. They do remember what I stood for. And I believe they will remember that what I lived out. And for me, it's living out my faith, even more so than me talking about my faith. They will remember what they actually saw. So think about your own life. Who shaped you? And my guess is that it wasn't simply because of what that person accomplished. I bet you it's how you saw them live. You remember a teacher who believed in you, a coach who challenged you, your parents who sacrificed for you, the boss who made some really, really tough decisions, but they did it with integrity. They did it when it was painful for them. Maybe it's a friend who stood beside you during a difficult season. You don't remember them because of their titles. You don't remember them because of their positions. You remember them because of their example. And again, that to me is legacy. If you're a follower of Jesus, think about his life. I think about the example that he lived and his greatest lessons. He had some incredible lessons. Read the Bible. Even if you just want some life lessons, read the Bible, read some of Jesus's parables or Jesus's stories. But I think his greatest lessons weren't just the ones that he taught verbally. It was the ones that he lived. And that's still how people learn. That is still how people really get to know who we are, not just from what we say, but from what we consistently model. As business owners, sometimes we fool ourselves into believing that success gives us some kind of an influence. And it does. I'm not saying it doesn't. Sometimes we build wealth and we think that that's the influence that we have because of the wealth that we've built. But I also strongly believe that character gives us influence. Success simply gives us a larger audience. If my character doesn't match my success, I've just enlarged my platform without enlarging my impact. And that's a very sobering thought, at least to me, because people are not primarily impressed just by success. I think they are truly drawn to authenticity. I think they remember consistency. I believe they trust integrity. There's another thought that's been running around in my head and also touching my heart over the past several months. And that is that I believe one of the greatest gifts we can give another person is to help them become who God intended them to be. Think about that. That has just really struck me very, very recently. As parents, our goal isn't simply to raise successful kids. It's to raise children who know Jesus and become who he created them to be. As leaders, our goal isn't simply to build, productive teams. I think as a leader, our goal is to help people flourish. both in their capacity in your organization or in your business, but also as a person. It should also be measured by the people that we have influenced along the way. Again, I think people will forget how many things we accomplish, but they will rarely forget how we made them feel. They will rarely forget how we treated them and whether our lives have pointed them forward to something greater than themselves. That's what I think people will remember. Have we helped them and helped point them to greater purpose? So let me ask you a few questions. When people watch your life, what are they learning? What does your family see? Those are the immediate people who see you the most. What do they see? How about your employees? We're at work. What do they say? Something like a third of our time we're in our careers or in our professions. So what do your employees see in your life, how you're living? What do your grandchildren see? I took one of my grandsons to a talk that I had in front of a Christian businessmen's organization. That was really cool for him to be there, not just seeing me perform and on stage, so to speak, but also hearing specifically what I was talking about. Would people say, when they're around you, would they say that you're present? Would they say that you had integrity when nobody was watching? Well, they were seeing it, but when no one was really watching, would they conclude that success matters more to you or purpose? Success matter more to you or your faith? Would they say that you loved people well? Would they say you consistently pointed people toward your faith or toward God? Because remember, the greatest legacy that we leave is not what we leave behind when we're gone. It's what we live in front of people when we're here. So, one day there will be no more businesses. One day there'll be no more titles, no more awards, no more recognition, no more balance sheets, no more podcasts. Oh my gosh, what's a world without Franchise Pitfalls and Profits podcast? Someday there will be no more podcasts. There'll be no more LinkedIn profiles. There'll be no more Facebook and TikTok. Those things all certainly have value, but none of them have eternal value. So that's why I've become convinced the greatest legacy we can leave isn't a successful business. It isn't financial security to another generation. It isn't even a respected reputation, to be really honest, although I feel my reputation is very important. I think what we leave behind is the life that we have lived while we're here. I want people to remember how I lived while I was here. So I'm just going to wrap up. I'm just going to close. I want to leave you with a simple thought, a simple question. What are you living in front of people now? What are you living in front of the people who see you the most, who know you the best? Every day, somebody's watching, particularly the people closest to you, the ones you're going to have the greatest influence, the ability to have the greatest impact upon. Those people are watching. And what are you living in front of them? They're learning what matters to you by what they're seeing, by the example that you're setting, by the example that you're living, not simply by what you're saying. What are you consistently doing? How are you consistently living? And that's why, again, I have come to believe that the greatest legacy we leave is not what we leave behind. It's what we live in front of people while we're here. So this week, live the kind of life that you hope people will remember, because that's how your legacy will be built, one day at a time. And living your legacy is your legacy. So, hey, thanks for being with us. I appreciate it. If indeed you have enjoyed and gotten value out of this session, please subscribe, please like, please make a comment, please share the link to our podcast with somebody else, and I will see you next week.